This here was a pilot chute. It had little wires that was in it, spring loaded. And when I pulled the ripcord, this popped out and pulled the big chute on up in there to carry me down. Like I say, we didn't have any sensation of falling. Even after I pulled ripcord, I didn't have any sensation of falling. But as we got close to the ground, I began to look to see where I was going to land. And I got down there, and all of a sudden, I just got on down to the ground. I'd come down behind a big boulder, and there I was. The other crew member, this man, landed over about 50 yards from me. And I says, well, what I'm going to do? So I went down to, and we discussed it, just beginning to get ready to leave, and looked up, and there was a great big guy standing up there, and he didn't say a word, just motioned. And so we followed him, and he started back up the mountain. We had been on oxygen for about 4 hours. So you can imagine how well we managed to run up the mountain. And to top it off, I felt or heard 2 slugs, 2 projectiles go by my ear. It gives you a little more emphasis to move. We ran for about 3 hours, or 4 hours. We went up the mountain, down a ridge, down another ridge. You have heard the story about having saliva, like cotton. I had that. We tried to make a guide understand that we needed water. And finally, he took us down through a little orchard, and we started talking about aqua. And he found 2 wells. One well he looked into and says, well, just shook his head and didn't say anything. And he pointed over to the other well. Well, we got our aqua. We went from there on down the valley. It's about 11 o'clock at night. We come to a little house, shanty shack. It was made out of mud. The rest of the crew was there. They had a roasted sheep for the evening meal. But we hadn't had anything since 5 o'clock the day before. We was there about 2 hours, and the guide or whoever, there was 4 or 5 Yugoslavian soldiers there. They were guides, really. And we were there about 2 hours, and we started up the mountain. We walked until daylight. At daylight, we hid in a cave. We stayed there all day. The next night, was the same thing. We walked 4 nights in a row after dark all night. One of these nights, we came down out of the mountain, high through the orchard, and down across the coastal highway where the Germans patrolled. At that point, though, they did feed us some goat's milk, and you can imagine that being the only meal we had was the goat's milk. It tasted good. We next joined up with the with the Tito's First Army, and we started spent 4 days with them, waiting for the supply ship to come in from Vis, which was an island off the coast of Italy, off the coast of Yugoslavia. And when it came in, we walked about, well, I'd say we walked about 10 miles down to the coast. The supplies were taken off. They loaded about 6 of their injured soldiers on the supply wagon and us. And we took off. We got out to a little island of Havar, and we spent the day there. The Germans controlled one end of the island, the Yugoslavians controlled the other end of the island. For a meal, we went out in the boat. The guide found a school of fish, threw a hand grenade into it. We picked up the dead fish. It just killed them, and that was our meal. We went back to the island of Var and spent the rest of the day. Night came, we started on for Vis, which was held by the Americans, American commandos. This trip from Havar to Vis was not very long, and yet I like to froze to death. And I was sitting there with my back being against a little cabin, and hand reaches over to the top of the cabin with a cup. And I took the cup and I took a drink, and I never drank anything like it before. It was cherry wine, he called it, but I don't. It had a lot of kick to it. We got down to Vis and welcome and not welcome, because it was pretty well filled with soldiers, and we waited for an airplane to come in to pick us up. An AT-3, which if you remember, that was a passenger plane, came in, landed, and swung around, and we was loaded onto it. And the runway was very short on this. And the exit there was 2 cliffs, and it come down to a V. We got in that airplane, and the pilot took off, and he set it up on one wing and flew out to that V. We ended up in Bari, Italy, in the hospital. They took us 2 days to finish the trip. They run us through all kinds of tests to make sure we were well and everything. One of the things I didn't tell you, in our harness, we had these little trays. They had medicine in them and everything, and towels and tablets. The tablet is a water purifier. We could have used those, or we did use those.